All right, creating the arm and leg joints up next. I'll do the leg first, and then we'll circle back to the arm. Leg's actually pretty easy. We do add a lot more joints to this later on for control purposes, but just getting the initial setup for the leg isn't too bad, and it'll actually be pretty quick. So let's go through those steps. I'm going to go up here to the Create Joints tool. This one I'm going to do in the side view as well. And the first joint I need is for the hip. And I'm going to click that right in here. And you can see in the front view, that doesn't quite work for us, right? And that's because this is going on the X. It's kind of just going, instead of being in this location, right, where I would like it, it's going and zeroing out on the X because I'm doing it in the side view. Don't worry, that's fine. We can adjust that here in a second. Going down next to the knee joint. Hopefully you've given your character just a little bend in your leg. Nothing too crazy. Kind of like what I've got here, right? Let's do this. Let's enable 5 and shading and X-ray joints. That way you can really see it. There we go. It's not as confusing. So again, just a little bend forward, especially with this. We're coming down top, forward a little bit, and then we're going to go back for our ankle. So just that we have a little bit of bend, back, forward for the knee, back again for the ankle. Next up is going to be the ball of the toe, and I'm going to enable this button right here, wireframe on shaded, to show me my wireframe. But I just want to make sure that I put this in a location where I have enough edge loops to be able to bend that toe whenever we go to walk later on in the semester. And then holding shift, if I so choose, I could click and drag a joint left or right, and it's going to go in that direction and lock in that direction since I'm holding shift. I can take that to the end of the toe, and that just gives us, again, we don't scan anything to toes ends like this, or we'll do this for the fingers as well, but just really useful for us to do that. And then hit enter. And again, we can see that it's not aligned with our leg here in the front view. We just select that top joint and move it over until it is. I'm going to make this full screen so we can just talk about this for a second, okay? And this is why I was very adamant about you all modeling your legs in the front view, straight up, straight down, because on a technical level, it makes it easier to rig. And, you know, with this IK system that we're building, this way it's not going to be too complex for us to manipulate. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, we only did one side, but we'll talk about the mirror joint tool later on. Right now, I need to rename this, and I'm going to name this L_hip. Because this is the character's left hip, not, you know, I know it's on the right side for us, but this is our character's left hip. Then we're going to go L_knee. Then we're going to go L_ankle. L_ball. And L_toe. And I like to, for this, since it's an end joint, I also like to put END for end at the end, just to remind myself later on, hey, that's not an actual joint that we're going to be using for skinning. It's just a toe end joint. All right, so that's the leg joints done. Oh, silly me, we didn't even worry about the local rotation axes. So let's turn those on and take a gander. And then just to remind myself, I'm going to turn on the previous two that we did for the spine to look at their direction. All right, so you see we've got X going down, Z going left and right, and Y going back. But it matches up here, Y going back, that is. And that can be okay, but really, if we think about this, you know, the direction of the leg is going down, right, with these joints, and the direction of the spine is going up. So just a quick experiment. I'm going to rotate this leg up, and maybe you can start to see the issue that we might run into later on, where X is pointing down this chain, Y is pointing forward, but in a positive direction instead of negative, right? Because again, the direction of this Y, whatever it's showing you, it's like, hey, that's the positive direction for Y, for this local rotation, or this local axis for this object. So, and the same thing for Z, right? Left and right is Z. So we're going to reverse this. So I'm going to select these joints, and we're going to go back to that good old skeleton, and we're going to go back to the Orient joint tool. Option box so we can play around with it. But it looks like those settings that we used last time will work. And I know this might look backwards, but again, if we flip this up and it's going in the same direction, it should match up, right? Again, if you do rotations like this, you make sure you want to undo. We don't want to add any extra rotation to these joints after we created them. Fantastic. So again, just to show you real quick, Y positively moving back, Z positively moving to the right, or his right, the character's right, and then carries on out to the end. But we just want to make sure that that happened at the toe end as well, because typically it doesn't. Also, let's talk about this change of direction, which confuses some students. So we got X going down, X going down, X going forward, X going forward. So some students look at this and are like, oh, that's wrong. I need to adjust that so X is going down. And here's the hip hop. No. is X is pointing down the chain. So ideally the X should be pointing to the next joint. And this changes various softwares and various workflows. It might be Y pointing down. You just got to dedicate to one for the whole character essentially. And we've dedicated to X. So X needs to point down the chain of its selected hierarchy for the joints. And what we have is actually correct. So as long as Y is pointing back, where the X is pointing down, we're good. But we get here to the end, and the toe end doesn't really have one. I don't want to just rotate it. We're going to go to component mode with that question mark and grab that axis and rotate it. So holding J, I can do increments. Just get that lined up pointing forward. And then we need to completely flip that Y and Z. So we're going to do the same thing, just rotating that. Holding J in increments. There we go. Now it matches up with the previous joint. I'll get back out of component mode by going to object mode and selecting all these joints. I can say local rotation axis, and same thing for the other two that turned out for the spine. G repeats your last action in Maya, and we are done with the left leg. We're going to go and do the right arm now.